All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Simply Cyber Live, the long-form weekly podcast live stream interview, however you want to caption it, where I am happy to bring on cybersecurity professionals from across the industry to interview them, to get their experiences, to just have a good time, to be more inclusive. I am Jerry Ozier, if you don't know, and this is the Simply Cyber channel. I see all of you in chat right now, which is absolutely fantastic. Today, we're going to be joined by Ian Anderson. Now, some of you might know him from Twitter. He's quite vibrant on Twitter as Ian_Infosec. He lives in Oklahoma, so he's probably big on college football. We'll get into that in a little bit. He's been working in cybersecurity for a very, very long time. And he's currently responsible for cybersecurity, physical security, tech monitoring, operations, IT, OT, cloud, field environment. The guy is a stud. Okay, so we're going to get into it. We're going to ask him all sorts of questions. It is a fireside chat, which means there's no rules. We can go wherever we want. He is teaching in academia, which resonates with me. And Ian and I have been online friends for like 6 or 7 years. And first time I'm meeting him as well. So I'm super excited to bring them to you. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them in chat. We're going to have a great time today. Let me go get Ian, okay? All right, here we are with Ian Anderson. How you doing, Ian?
Hey, Jerry. I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right, man. Good to see you. So hopefully I didn't say anything incorrect. You are doing a boatload of stuff, my friend, at work across all your jobs, I suppose.
Yeah.
So how do you keep it all organized, man?
Well, I think it starts with the people that you recruit, right? So talent recruitment, retention is probably my number one job, because you're only as good as your people. And so luckily, we have had a rash of success with just finding the right people. And a lot of the times, we've gone out and found people that are looking to enter into the security market and have grown them and developed them into these professionals that are helping us kind of rethink our processes and challenges, and give us an opportunity to maybe take a different direction than we probably would have if we hadn't kind of taken a chance on someone newer to the industry. So it is a lot. There's a lot of threats out there. Critical infrastructure has always been a passion of mine. The electric space is fascinating. The idea that we generate our product and at the speed of light deliver it to your house is pretty amazing. Like when you think about what the grid is and what the grid can do. And then the kinds of people that you have to recruit in order to be able to satisfy those needs and mitigate those risks. Again, from a cyber perspective, from an OT perspective, the geographic problems that you have to overcome in order to deliver and scale these services. It's all really fascinating. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, it certainly is, especially in energy, which I do want to get into a bit. But something you just mentioned, which is refreshing and wild. It sounds like you seek out and target, people who are looking to break into the industry, which has been, an ongoing saga that probably lasts 4 to 5 years, right? With like entry level, but you need a CISSP and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What's your approach to that?
Actually, this is like probably we're gonna start off on like the hot takes, and I'm gonna like air all my grievances and all that stuff, right? So my biggest beef with the security community is this whole idea that we're like millions of professionals short on the cybersecurity side.
Okay.
And in one side, I do believe like there is a shortage in terms of the skills required for cybersecurity. On the other hand, I challenge the industry itself, because if we're really that short, we would see a rash of development opportunities, entry-level positions. Like we would figure out a way to bring talent into the environment and help us drive improvements. But to your point, I think every job out there is something like, you have to have like 5 years of security experience for an entry level cybersecurity position. You have to have a CISSP or go to like a SANS boot camp and get, like a GSEC or something along those lines. And so what I've tried to be is an agent for development, because at some point, someone took a chance on me. I mean, really, my entry into cybersecurity, I think this is actually what got me on your show, was I was reminiscing about working for a .edu security team. And this is like back in the early 2000s, where like cybersecurity was way more hilarious and fun than it was like scary and expensive. And so, but someone took a chance on me and just gave me an opportunity to be a student tech. And then I got that security stink on me, and I just kind of like had a couple other opportunities to grow. And then I'm kind of here where I'm at now. You don't find as many of those anymore, and so I like to recruit out of development shops. I like to recruit out of help desk and desktop teams, customer service positions. I actually just brought on a recent graduate from the local university here in Norman, Oklahoma, Go OU. And when I was hiring her, some feedback she gave me was like, well, I don't think I have the technical chops to do this job. And so I asked her, like, well, what do you do for money now? And she goes, well, I'm a bartender. I was like, well, look, your skills as a bartender are way more important than all this technical junk that like I will teach you. It's the people skills. Like, you have all these other skills that we don't have on the security team, and I can use those skills to help me, go, develop my kind of broad risk management across the org, because you have this insane ability to talk to people and to read people and to diffuse situations and create relationships and a lot of that stuff.
Oh, definitely. And shout out to Gary Sturgiadis if he's in chat. He might not be, but I did a series of videos, Ian, where I found people who broke into the industry from uncommon starting places. So bartender, rabbi, heavy machinery operator. So I always, whenever it comes across food and bev, I say what's up to Gary. So, and really quick, just shout out to all the squad members in chat right now. I see Ms. Julian, Greg Does Stuff, Carrie, Chris Hayhall, Haircut Fish, Kenneth. Really appreciate you guys coming out. Miss Alana, good to see you. So, one interesting thing, so I'm a faculty at the Citadel Military College, and Ian is faculty also. You said at OU?
I'm actually on the faculty at Arizona State University.
Okay, at ASU. Do you know Josh Paulai? Have you he's over doing the cyber research over there. He moved from Dakota State down to ASU.
No, so honestly, Jerry, I'm a dirty political science guy. I teach in the school. I teach in the School of Political Science. So I teach in a program. It's the Master of Arts in Global Security. So it's a security-centric master's program that's all online. And we walk you through kind of national security, policy, cyber, a little bit of physical. The two courses that I teach in the program is intro or overview of cybersecurity, and I also teach cybersecurity strategy and planning. And so, how do you take a risk and actually build out a larger kind of national policy or national security strategy to confront that risk. So, all
right, well, chat, let us know if you want the conversation to go this direction, because I'm about to go that direction. So I didn't realize that's what you were doing, Ian, but now that I do know, let's talk about this for a minute, man.
Okay.
Okay, so a couple of things. Executive orders coming out left and right.
Yep.
We can go back to Biden 20, where it was like zero trust in 90 days for federal government. We can also, like, the other one that's interesting to me is 2021 about supply chain coming off the SolarWinds attack, and requiring critical software to have higher integrity for supply chain. We see software bill of materials turning into a thing, even though that's like incredibly difficult to achieve. What are your thoughts around those particular policies and maybe where we might go with those?
Oof, yeah. So the challenge that always that seems to always present itself. And so being an electric utility, we are regulated through something called NERC. And so NERC is North American Energy Reliability Corporation, and they have produced something called the Critical Infrastructure Protection Standards, or CIP standards. And so that is when you think about, at the end of the day, it's the private sector, right? It's the Microsofts, it's the Googles, it's the Amazons, it's the Adobes, the SolarWinds. Like, they're the ones actually creating the products that are consumed by the various services, be it banking, energy, government, military, all those, in order to do what they need to do, right? And so, like, there's this obvious public-private partnership. And so I think the government is I think that it is slow to implement things like sticks, and they want to instead really be more on the carrot side. And so what that means is they are trying to entice people to do good by offering rewards for doing good, where in reality, what I've seen on the electric sector side is like, creating actual penalties for, poor resiliency, poor redundancy, that has actually led to more action. So the stick has to be right there along with the carrot. But we're generally a population that doesn't like regulation, and for good reason, because I think that regulation has slowed down some innovation on the electric utility side. For example, when you start looking at the NERC regulations, the relationship between an electric utility and the cloud is kind of fraught with problems, and it's mostly because of the compliance teams, because there's some specific language in the NERC standards that preclude a electric utility from really being able to go and embrace some of these cloud service offerings at full scale. And so, I know in my little stub, you kind of put municipal in there, right? And so like how this directly affects like in a municipal state, because municipalities sometimes run their own electric utilities. One of the things that we see is that if you're a municipal electric utility, you are likely have fairly low funding. So any chance you get in order to scale or enhance your service offering by leveraging like a managed service or something like that is very, very useful for you. However, you can't move to like a managed service, because those managed services are almost always in the cloud, because there's like some underlying rules or principles of the NERC standard that prevent. So now going back, right? So regulatory requirements in those structures absolutely have their place in helping govern the public-private partnership and holding the private sector accountable, but it can't be done in a way that endangers innovation on the private sector. And so I'll close by like tying all this off is okay.
Yeah, sorry, I should have waited until I started.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So if you look at the history of the internet, the internet itself has really thrived and flourished because of the hands-off, component, right? It's not like China, where you have the Great Firewall of China, and it's all highly high touch and highly restricted. Like there's freedom to it, and it is allowed to grow and become what it is today. And so I understand the hands-off nature, but as this environment, as computing, as technology becomes a more and more critical component of what we're doing, that like more of that kind of forced regulatory component is needing to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. And really quick, I see Raging Greg with the super chat. I do want to, Greg, we are going to get to that. I'm going to ask Ian that afterwards, but just to kind of continue this thread with critical infrastructure and stuff, I see Professor Black Ops with a question that totally lines right up with this. With what are your thoughts on no Fed oversight for electric grid? Seems like a death by 1,000 cuts. Now, I'll just weigh in really quickly with my thoughts, Ian, and give you a second there. I think, it really is a difficult matter, because the federal government is trying to have like one solution for all of the businesses. And while electrical is electrical, there's different ways of implementing it. There's people who like produce it and then and then push it to someone who then transmits it or disseminates it. And then some people do it all in-house. Then I don't even know if renewables follows the same tech stack in OT as, traditional coal and hydro and stuff like that. So it's a really tough nut to crack, but Ian, I'll throw it to you.
Yeah. So one, I think I fixed my microphone. Does
God, you sound super crispy now, my man.
Oh yeah. Okay. No, it was on. I was trying to it was picking up my headset. So golly, I'm so sorry. All right. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. So what are my thoughts on no Fed oversight? So I'm, NERC-CIP in its current form, it really was predicated on the events of 2003. So in 2003, for those of us that were around and kicking, there was a massive blackout in the Northeast. It knocked hundreds of thousands of people without power for a period of time. People ended up losing their lives. And it wasn't because of hackers or anything like that. It was actually because of just poorly written software and bad change control. And it led to a set of cascading impacts. But what we did is we said, wow, that was a really horrible experience. And while it wasn't caused by someone with malicious intent, what if it had been something with malicious intent? And so that's where we started getting the standards. And look, over the past 20 years, we have done a lot from the reliability perspective. Like it is a shock anymore now when your electricity goes off. And I don't want to try and age anyone here, age myself, but when I was a kid, it wasn't all that uncommon, especially in a place like Oklahoma where we have, tornadoes and, really severe weather and winds and all that stuff. Wasn't uncommon to lose electricity every now and again. Now with these crazy 99% uptimes, it is very shocking. So as much as we hate to say it, it does seem to have a positive impact, right? And so, to answer the question, no Fed oversight, I think more the problem, it wouldn't be death by a thousand cuts. It would be everyone off and going and doing their own thing. And so then you don't have standards, and then, you get into siloed, professionals, and it actually will create other weird cascading issues. It wouldn't be a thousand cuts of for each individual organization, but it wouldn't strengthen the entire industry, which is what a regulatory body needs to do.
Yeah, 100%. Let's take it back to Raging Greg's question really quickly. And Raging Greg, thanks for the super chat. And then I do want to get into some municipality stuff. Raging Greg, first of all, I do have a super chat sounder, Ian.
Did we just become best friends? Yep.
Thank you so much, Raging Greg. He also lives in OKC. He's got some certs and a clearance, which is great.
Yeah.
He's having trouble finding a job. What kind of advice, since you know the local market, and
Sure.
I guess shout out for InfoWar Summit.
Yeah, the Information Warfare Summit. So there's 2 conferences worth going to in Oklahoma. There is B-Sides Oklahoma, which is up in Tulsa, and that's in the spring. And then you have the Information Warfare Summit, which is in the fall, and that's in Oklahoma City. So Tulsa is about 2 hours northeast of Oklahoma City. And this is Greg. So Greg, great question. The market, as I understand it, in Oklahoma City, is fairly tight just in general. But I would highly recommend reaching out to a recruiter. There's about 3 or 4 companies that do staff augmentation contract work. Honestly, that's how we tend to find some of our initial folks that we bring in, and then we will if it is all working out, we'll transition them to full-time employees. But I would recommend trying to go that contract route, get on a 6-month, 1-year contract, develop a bunch of skills, develop your networking. What you're doing here, going to IWS is great. Go to B-Sides, get involved in the different hacking groups that are kind of starting to build up. Every once in a while, go down to Dallas. They have the Dallas Hackers Association. And by the way, for those in the Dallas, Fort Worth, one of the most incredible collection of cybersecurity people they're in Dallas. The Dallas cybersecurity community and scene is off the hook, man. What they're doing is freaking amazing. And they're wonderful people. They will help you build a network. Just start getting tied in there.
I've heard that, especially there's a CISO network. There's that much going on that there's a CISO Dallas network. Yeah.
like Toyota moved in to Frisco, and like that whole area just exploded. And yeah, there's a lot, but the people there, like high end guys from Palo Alto Networks are there. CyberArk, those are some friends of mine. The new director of purple teaming for Scythe lives there. So very, very cool hacker community. I actually have been watching a guy who's doing some smart meter hacking. And I was like, I wonder where this guy is. And it's like, oh, well, duh, he's in Dallas. He's part of DHA, of course. Like,
That's
thank
cool.
God that he's one of the good ones.
So let's talk about B-Sides a minute. I'm sure there's a B-Sides Dallas that's probably phenomenal based on what you just said.
Yep.
You said B-Sides OKC is pretty dope.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about B-Sides? What's your thoughts? I know we're seeing people in chat who have loved going to them or dying to catch them. Like Alana and Carrie. What are your thoughts? Because I love B-Sides. There's a B-Sides Charleston that is near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really depends upon B-Sides is carried by the people that are planning it, and so it depends upon your region. Like in Oklahoma, we're really blessed to have some very cool people and some really dedicated people that like to put on a con is a lot of legwork. And because you got to go get all the sponsors and the tables, and got to find speakers and and all that stuff. And so great B-Sides conferences are true labors of love, and that's probably why they're so good, right? I think I think about some of the more corporate-y conferences. I guess we'll just name names, right? Because it's a fireside chat.
Yeah.
There's like Initech and Face to Face, and and all these other ones, and what they are is they're like CPE factories for like it's like come in and people like show up, get their badge scanned, claim 8 hours of CPEs, and then they get out of there. They walk the floor, try and grab all the swag. They're not necessarily there for development. They're not there to grow their network and things like that. B-Sides, I think, has just enough of an edge on it still, which is why it came about, right? Because I think people were getting real disappointed with like where Black Hat was, right? And so like B-Sides came out of that. Right. And it was like it was back to the roots of like, let's get to the hacking. Let's get to the technical. Like, let's rip these things apart and put them back together and understand how we got there. And then putting it in each of the locations has made it, again, that labor of love for your local community, which I think makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan for all the reasons you just outlined with B-Sides. Plus, we're all especially, I mean, B-Sides has been around since before COVID, but in a post-pandemic world, people are, I work for a company in Las Vegas. You know what I mean? Like, I don't go to Las Vegas. I don't know these people. I don't, you don't know the people in your own community. And there's a lot of opportunity to network, and networking is so, so valuable. And I know we do Simply Cyber, and we have Discord, and we do all these other things to complement and augment that. But B-Sides is a security conference put on by security people versus some of the ones you just mentioned, which is a security conference put on by business. And honestly, the way you just outlined it sounds it. And I know there's research being presented, and I know this is oversimplifying it, but it's almost transactional where it's like you're paying to go. They're giving you CPEs. They get to sell your email address as lead gens for, X amount of companies. They get their money. You get your CPEs and merch, and then you leave. And it's almost like this like agreed upon transaction, which is not what B-Sides is.
No, you're right. Because and everyone knows what the game is, right? And so like I'll go to those conferences because like, look, but one of my main jobs anymore is to go to these places and connect and network with people. And because if I run into a situation where I'm like, man, I could really use someone to help me on this. I have them in my hip pocket, right? So I'll go to these things, but I refuse to let anyone scan my badge, and it drives them crazy. If you show up to their booth and you're like, you're not scanning my badge.
Yeah.
Hey, but here's a tip. When you sign up for these events, give them a aliased email address. So like, if we're going to talk about like, hacker, like pro tips, if you aren't best friends with your Exchange administrator, you're missing out, because you can get your Exchange admin, or you can create another Gmail account or something, and then use that to sign up. And then just, let them scan all day long, right? Give them a Google Voice number, give them a give them a Gmail account, let them scan all, to their heart's content, and then it'll keep you clean. A lot of the conferences I go to, they want to see my corporate email, and so one could create an alias, and then as soon as the conference is over, that alias maybe gets deleted, and your mailbox stays clean, and you get everything that you need.
Or create a filter and rule. I mean, I've seen some people who will do one for each conference just to see like what, like who are they selling it to? How did you get it? But yeah, keeping a clean line is pretty good. BSEC is in chat saying, hell yeah, Ian. That's what I'm talking about. No badge scanning. I love it. So just as a quick shout out, since we're talking B-Sides, if anyone's interested, B-Sides Charleston 2023 is November 4th. That keynote right there, in case you missed it, Ian, is me. So,
it's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, it's kind of a big deal. Like such an honor. And I'll be talking about what Game of Thrones can teach us about cybersecurity. A really fun little silly talk that I've put together just to basically be able to talk about Game of Thrones and make all sorts of parallels and stuff like that. But yeah, absolutely. So good. Like if you're not networking at a B-Sides event, I'd argue you're doing it wrong, because that's really what it's supposed to be.
The hallway. Spend your as much time as you can in the hallway. Again, the sessions are great. But man, be in that hallway, meet people, talk to people, collaborate, that kind of stuff. That's where it's all about. It's such a weird industry, because a lot of what we do is there's a lot of trust that has to go into it, and it's hard to trust someone that you've never met, right? And so just having that face, having that human connection for something so as technical and cybery as what we do is still really important.
Yeah, and it's wild because you could say I'm in a Zoom call, or like you and I are talking right now, Ian, but there is something organic. There's something that's very difficult to quantify about in-person interaction and LobbyCon, and it's just, you have to experience it. Do you do Black Hat and DEF CON typically?
No, and that's pretty wild. I've never been to Black Hat or DEF CON. In fact, I just went to RSA for the first time this year. So I have had this really great career without going to the con of con. And every year without fail, I see everyone having a good time, and all these the internet famous people that are I'm friends with or whatever, and I think, I wish I was there, and I get a little bit of FOMO, and maybe it's just me. And then I'm like, oh, well, at least I'm not in Vegas, right? That's always what I come back to is at the end of the day, I'm not in Las Vegas. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. My feet don't hurt terribly. Yeah.
Yeah. But I do try to send my folks, because, again, it's not about me networking, right? It's about them, developing the relationships and the friendships and stuff that's going to help them go solve other challenges. So I do typically have a couple of representatives from my company that go, right, and to pick up on whatever, just have a good time. But no, personally, I've never been.
Yeah, it's got its pros and cons for sure. But what's your your go-to conference? What's a conference that you really, you make it a priority because you just enjoy it?
Yeah. So since I'm in OT, I go to a conference called S4 in Miami.
Miami. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So look, I'm not going to lie to you. When you're in Oklahoma, the idea of South Beach in January is pretty awesome. Right. And so, going out to Miami, but all kidding aside, it is the world's best OT security content. Yeah. Dale Peterson and Digital Bond and all that whole crew that puts on that conference is really just incredible. It is by far the best kind of vendor agnostic one that I've been to. Right. And so I do try to make that every year. Other good ones, HughesecCon, which is actually going on now. It's in Houston, Texas. It's ran by a guy named Sam Van Ryder, great friend of mine. That conference is incredible. If you can get down to Houston for that one, I highly recommend it. And then, I mean, honestly, it's a lot of the kind of vendor conferences. So I am going to be in Baltimore here in a few weeks for Dragos's information security con. So Dragos, or DISC, is always on November 5th. And it's out there in Hanover, Maryland, which is right outside of Baltimore. So those are always pretty good ones. But I tend to do a lot more of the OT stuff because the OT relationships are like really that's one of the vital areas for us right now.
Well, and you guys are pretty niche. I mean, like, cyber's kind of small already, but like OT is pretty small, and knowing each other. And I know I've never worked OT, but I worked with Clint Dungeon over at ThreatGen for a while, and he was previously like heavy OT, and so I knew about S4. Yeah. And so if you are listening to this and you work in OT, or you're going to be working in OT, S4 is definitely it's in Miami, but that's not selling, but like it's very, very valuable networking. Actually, interviewed Rob Lee while he was at S4 for like the Simply Cyber Live. He did it from his hotel room.
Was he wearing his parrot shirt? Because he's got like this parrot shirt that he'll wear when he gets on stage at S4. It's always a hoot.
Oh no! I must have got him on a different day or something. But yeah, no, it was cool. It was cool. Yeah. I'll just tell you, like, just put in a strong push because I feel so strongly about it. Wild West Hackenfest in Deadwood is unbelievable. It is, in my opinion, the best conference. It's like 800 people, so it's probably similar to S4. It's not big. We take over the town. John Strand has kind of set like the tone at the top of like what the vibe is. So it's playful, it's engaging, it's interactive, it's very casual. Oh man, if you get a chance, like absolutely, Wild West Hackenfest is where you got to check out.
Okay, yeah, excellent. I'll check it out.
I love it. So let me, and if you got any questions, drop them in there. I see Jenny Housley got in here in Space Talk. It was good to see y'all. So one thing that I absolutely wanted to make sure that we talked about, Ian, on this interview today is municipality. So like when I see like Spartanburg, South Carolina hit with ransomware, and like Baltimore, Atlanta, LA, Minneapolis school district, I always, because I do a news brief every morning, I always lean into the camera and I'm like, listen, like local government doesn't have the money. They don't have the resources. They don't even have Infosec staff. It's like IT matrix. How much is true? Can you like pull back the curtain and like give us like some reality?
Yeah, it's all true. Right. So prior to my current job, I was a security manager for the city of Oklahoma City. And I wanted to start off by saying the city of Oklahoma City is just chock full of amazing and wonderful people. And, you look at kind of what they're doing from a public safety, so police, fire, public health, from a, water, wastewater, utility service, and then Parks and Rec, and then all the different things that allow us to just kind of live our lives. There's a lot going on, and like every dollar, right? If you just think about it from a pure resourcing perspective. So I was at the city of Oklahoma City, a municipality of about 600,000 people. We were so weird because we actually had like 3 people dedicated to security. Like that was unheard of, that the city of Oklahoma City recognized how important cybersecurity and physical security was, because they looked at like, well, what happens if 911 goes offline? What happens if our water treatment plant goes offline? Like these things are like existential problems to a municipality. And so we were very, very strange. When you then go and talk to the suburbs, which is really where a lot of us live, they don't have nearly the same population density. They have very different. And Alana, yes, it was after the bombing.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I want to circle back to that afterwards, but please continue. The suburbs.
Yeah, so they have very different. They have different tax policies and things like that. When you go talk to their IT shops, you may have like 2 people for the entire technology group, right? And so, like in my municipality where I live, it's like we're the 4th largest, and I think they've only got like 5 or 6 people in IT in total. Right. So you just have less and less, people, and not just the people, but then like the services. So like the firewalls and, EDRs and, and all the fancy junk that, a modern security organization typically has. Like, for example, no organization that I've ever worked for could afford Splunk,
Right.
right? But that's kind of like a normal, like, well, everyone uses Splunk. Well, really, no, not a lot of people use Splunk, quite honestly. So, it is a struggle from a training perspective, from an equipment perspective. I think people understand the risk, but like the risk to them is very different, right? Because like that risk pales in comparison to some of the other service delivery risk. Like it is politically untenable, right, for them to say, well, in order to pay for this, I'm going to have to take a firefighter off a shift, right, to bring in this other person, right? Because a vet cybersecurity person is going to cost a lot more money typically than a firefighter,
Right.
And so like, how does that land politically? Well, it won't land well, right? And so like they're going to go with whatever is more politically feasible. But that may change at some point. I like something's going to have to give, because ransomware is just destroying municipalities, and really it's the schools. Like that's where it's really, because like if you think your municipality is poor, go talk to your public schools. Like they've got even less than what a municipality typically has.
Yeah, it's so true. And, it's like one IT person for the entire school district, and, kind of, doing the best they can, stitching things together.
And they're giving every kid a laptop, but you got like 3 people to handle like tens of thousands of students, with their laptops. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the schools, I mean, not to go too far off tangent, but like even like how teachers are paid in K through 12 is ridiculous, considering what they have to do.
That's right.
Yeah. So, I mean, just to kind of circle back, Alana had mentioned the bombing. Now, the bombing was in 1995. So, we see a lot of times where you have a major incident and, the wallet opens up afterwards and spend. I'm not sure. I mean, is there any validity or correlation between, that catastrophe and the intent to spend to secure?
I don't know. I don't think it's a direct, like always there at the forefront of our mind, but like, for us in Oklahoma City, so like that, it's one of the most horrible days ever. I would recommend anyone that comes and visits our fine city to take a moment and just go walk through the grounds there. They're really beautiful. It's really well done. It's a heavy moment, right? Obviously, because so much happened. So many people lost their lives. But like that memorial sits right in the middle of town. And honestly, like anytime I have partners or guests or, friends or whatever visit, I always take them through or encourage them to walk through. Cause I think it does still sit with us, right? That experience, it sits there. Now, I don't know if people necessarily equate, directly and saying, well, like if I want to avoid this, so I'm going to spend this extra money and then I'm going to put in a firewall, right? I don't necessarily think that we're there, but I think it's the realization that no matter how good you feel, no matter how safe you feel, like evil can happen at any time. And so I think that's more like I think it's more now ingrained into our culture. And I would even argue that I think as Americans, we have a little bit of that. And hopefully we haven't lost too much, because like there's been some real tragedy, 22 years ago with 9/11,
right?
In a very similar vein, right? That evil happens, and we have to protect it, but we also have to be able to respond and be resilient.
Well, and that brings up an interesting point and kind of ties into something that Ian and I were talking about before the show started. In our industry, you can't secure 100%. There is always residual risk, right? So to Ian's point, evil, even if you do all the right things and you have infinite budget, evil can still happen, right? Yeah. So then it becomes this burden that we're forced to carry of struggle of like, okay, I'm defending. But did I, you can't prove a negative, or you can't disprove a negative, right? So you do threat hunting, but maybe you miss something. You're doing threat hunting, and maybe you got some nation state threat actor who does really good evasion. So it wears on you. And if you have an incident, then you're working it and you might burn yourself out. We started talking a little bit about mental health in industry, and I'd love to just spend a few minutes talking about that, Ian.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about the industry and mental health and where we are right now?
Yeah. So for the listeners, I was telling Jerry about how actually last week I was on vacation, but the 3 weeks prior to that were like travel for work, hosting a big security conference for electric utilities, and just craziness at work. And like I basically went 3 weeks without seeing my family. I was really feeling that burnout. I was just kind of done with everything. And you take that week and you kind of like start to come back, and you're like, oh man, like I got pretty close to the edge that time.
Mm-hmm.
What I'd say, like especially in the area I'm in, which is in operations. Operations is a grind, right? It is relentless. There's always something. Like, we will hire an operator and they'll aspire to like have this clean queue. Like, oh, I'm going to solve all the incidents. It's like, no, you're not. You're never like we're never going to get to, incident zero, and that's okay. Right. And that's a story that they need to hear. Like, hey, there's always work. Like operations isn't a done. It is a grind. And so, coming back, my focus this week and going, and really for the kind of Q4 as we wrap up this year is going to be about making sure that like we are taking advantage of blue sky days. So when things get a little bit slower, we take a breath, right? We, is this something that has to be done right now? Or is this something that, that we can send over to our automation team to go work on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, triaging and managing risks. Like not every incident is a organizationally destructive thing, right? Like sometimes just bad, stupid stuff happens, you wipe it and you move on, right? But it's important for us in the leadership space. And I would argue pretty much all of us, like we're leaders in some way, be it formal or informal, but people look up to you somewhere and they will follow your lead. And so for me to like take a step back and like, effectively uninstall Outlook from my phone and not hop on calls and all that stuff and let them go take care of it and then come back and give them the same support is an important signal that like mental health, personal health, all those things that they matter. Like we are, as leaders, we must have a commitment to our people 24/7, like, and we care about all aspects of them. It's not just about getting the job done. Right. Because if you take care of people's mental, physical, financial well-being, like they will show up and do amazing work for you. That I can pretty much promise. And so that's really kind of where we're now, where we in my org are really trying to focus on is like, how do we just balance that work, get the stuff done, but don't kill ourselves doing it.
Yeah. So what do you do personally to kind of, kick it, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, I mean, I should probably work out more. I don't. I do like to play golf, and so when it's nice outside, I'll go play bad golf. For just funsies, I like to game a little bit. I play flight simulators, right?
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, so if I'm wanting a chill, nice chill environment, I'll throw up Microsoft Flight Simulator and just cruise around. If not, I want to get metal, then I'll put on Digital Combat Simulator and hop in an Apache and go get it. But and that and just and hanging out with my family, like that was actually the best part of last week, was just getting to spend time with the ones that I love, and and remembering like why do we grind? Why do we work so hard? Like keeping the grid up, keeping electricity on, it's not for me, it's for the folks I care about. Right. And so like you go to work probably, to make a paycheck, and you want to better your life through that. But you're doing it for yourself and the ones you care about. That's what matters. So.
Yeah, I love that. And so just speaking of flight simulator, so I've never played a flight simulator, but I can appreciate it. And I do like cruise on YouTube a bit. And there's a flight simulator YouTuber who is hilarious. And I don't know if you watch any of these YouTubes of the flights. I mean, it's not like the whole flight. It's not like he's like, all right, we're doing an 8-hour LA to Tokyo, like,
Yeah.
you know, but
Is it Air Force Proud 95?
maybe he'll talk. I think like VATSIM or something.
Oh, yeah. I bet you it's AF. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and he'll talk to the ATCs and stuff. It's like it's just for chat. Like I'll find it before the stream ends.
Yeah.
It is an absolute delight. The guy's hilarious. He obviously knows how to fly because he like knows the way to talk and stuff.
He's a great Twitter follow too. So if or X or whatever we're calling it, but if you want to go mess with him, he's pretty hilarious.
I love it. So yeah, actually, let's talk about X for a second.
Okay.
You've been pretty. I don't see you very noisy, for lack of a better term, on LinkedIn, but on Twitter, I do see you posting more. Right? Maybe noisy is kind of not appropriate way to put it, but I'm just going to share it right here, guys.
Oh Lord,
this is definitely worth a follow on Infosec, or excuse me, on X. So you got the dog there. You like to kind of mix it up. Between pro and
it was a big weekend last weekend, so sorry for all the football content, but
it is college football season. Yeah, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have any thoughts about? Oh, you got the there we go, the Swiftie thing.
Yeah, so I got two daughters, and they're big Swifties, and so they've been watching the Travis Kelce Taylor Swift drama very, very closely. It's been pretty great. Anything to introduce them to come and watch the football game with me, I suppose.
Yeah, well, yeah, like thanks a lot, Travis, for allowing that bridge to be made between football fans and non-football fans. So,
Gary, do you want to know like the scary? So one of the scariest professional moments of my entire life. I was pretty new at OG&E, and just a casual conversation. We're in a meeting, the CIO's in there, blah, blah, blah. And someone's like, oh yeah, you should see Ian's Twitter account. And like, and the CIO slowly turns. It's like, oh, you're on Twitter. It's like, oh my God. It's like, that's a resume generating event if I've ever seen one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like nowadays your Twitter is like public fare, right? Like people go check it out.
Yeah. And, I've toned it down quite a bit.
Oh, have you? Oh, well, I don't know. I've never seen you really post any like salacious hot takes. Like,
I think it's mostly I'm too lazy because you get too many people spooled up and then you got to deal with it, right? And so I think a lot of us, and probably I would probably say you and me and a handful of others, like we occupy this kind of like just like normal people space of Twitter where we don't seem to get too gassed up or too on too much stuff. So. Did you
go over to Mastodon when Twitter like imploded?
Oh yeah, no, I tried all that stuff. I tried Mastodon. I'm on Blue Sky, and I just can't. I can't get into it, and it's so sad because I've had such a positive experience on there, but like I don't know, some of the toxicity, right, is just kind of getting harder and harder to deal with. And
on Mastodon,
on X, right? Right. And then, and maybe I need to try, and give a better try on Mastodon and Blue Sky or whatever. But problem is, all my friends are still on X, and so for me, it's still just how do I converse with like these people like you, for example, that I've known for years and years and years, and keep up with, because like losing connection with guys like you is like that would be bad. Like I would like that wouldn't. That's not what I want. Like I want to continue to have these relationships with my friends. So.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. I tried to Mastodon. I found the interface to be janky and like it did what it did, but it lacked the community cohesion associated with it. One thing, again, like I do operate in a bubble, so perhaps I don't see it, but personally, I have felt that Twitter, like even like say 10 years ago, right? Like, which is going way back. Like InfoSec Twitter was a bit more toxic. And I feel that maybe some elders like basically spoke up and like, slap people around. In the current form of Twitter InfoSec or InfoSec Twitter, I feel it's a lot less toxic. I don't see the insults and the noob and like stupid question. Are you seeing a similar experience, that transition?
No, without a doubt. I think I would agree with the elders comment. I think that there's some people that stand up and be like and immediately call people on their BS. And then I think we're also just a lot better at like I think that there's some chaos agents, right, that exist, and people kind of watch like, oh, that's just so and so, right? Like they're just wiling out. Like it's fine. Let them do their thing. I think it's more kind of accepting of like, man, people are just going to disagree and people are going to wile out. What like the rash of doxing and the harassment and the kind of predatory behavior does seem to be going away. I think it's all. I think maybe actually what impacts me more is like the way actually X is probably being talked about, and then like people are like really good at dredging up like all that really awful like parts, the stuff that's going on the platform. You're like, is that really who I want to be associated with?
Mm-hmm.
So, but look, it's a complicated thing because like if people are not like leaving in mass, right? I mean, I think even someone here on the chat was like, yeah, I'm on it, but I'm still on Twitter, till basically the thing falls apart. And so it'll be interesting to see what ends up happening with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So all right, let's turn it back to some Infosec stuff.
Yeah.
Greg's got a great question here. I love it. What's the biggest challenge in OT security today? Like what's something that keeps you up at night? Like to steal a vendor question. Like I guess what are you looking at?
Yeah. What keeps me up at night? All right. So the number one challenge in OT security, you guys aren't going to like it, but it's relationships. And what I mean by that is you can like, there is a paper out there written by two guys, Rob Lee, who is the co-founder CEO of Dragos, and then another guy named Mike Asante. And Mike Asante passed away, rest in peace, but he's one of the most transformative human beings on the planet when it came to OT security. He worked for the Idaho National Labs and all this stuff. Like Mike was an incredible person. But Rob and Mike came together and they wrote something called the Cyber Kill Chain for OT. And in that paper, they line out why OT is the most defendable environment on the planet. And what they did that was so smart is they said, look, every OT environment is different. And so you inherently have a home field advantage when it comes to OT because only you know how OT works, how your OT system looks, how it operates, what's normal, what's not normal. Right? The problem here is a lot of us don't know what those environments look like because we haven't really gone in to look at it. So when you start saying, doing things like, hey, I want to go look at these networks, I want to go take a look, you're going to have to go into those OT areas and gain access. Mm-hmm. And so guys like the instrumentation and control technicians, the plant managers, the control room operators, all those folks, they're going to be very hesitant to give you access because they are paid on uptime. Now, like when I was working for the city of Oklahoma City in the water department, I remember going to a water treatment plant and saying, hey, I'm here to upgrade something. And I was basically told to scram, right? They're like, no, we're not letting you anywhere close. I was like, well, you can trust me or whatever. I had like this whole song and dance I tried to give them. They're like, well, we were, like a year and a half ago, remember when IT broke the email system and we couldn't send emails for like 6 hours? Yeah, we're not letting you do that to our treatment plant. I was like, well, that was a year and a half ago and that was email. It's a whole different thing, but they don't see it that way. They see IT can't be trusted because they don't understand and they don't have the relationships. So when we started 7 years ago on this major OT security overhaul at OG&E, the number one thing we focused on was relationships. And so that started with, we would go out to plants, we'd go out into the field, and I would always bring donuts and I would always bring coffee, or coffee sometimes, but candy. You leave donuts in the break room and candy in the control rooms. Right? Because the control room operators don't want sugar all over their hands. So you get them like little bite-sized pieces of candy. You throw bags of candy into trucks. You start making it so where people, when they see you, they don't think, oh, crap, here's security to break stuff. they think, oh, here's security, I'm going to get a sweet treat. And then you can start to hack them by remembering like, oh, I know this power plant, they got so-and-so there and he loves Twizzlers. And I'm going to bring Twizzlers because I know he's the guy that ultimately is the sayer of like what we can and can't do. So we worked on these relationships for years and years and years and years. And it ended up paying huge because we were allowed to deploy a network security monitoring tool across our entire fleet. Now, that people were still cautious. So we deployed this tool, and this is a story I like to tell. So, we deployed this tool and people were still nervous. And wouldn't you know it, one of the distributed control systems at one of our plants went down. Very first thing they think is, oh God, it's freaking security. Security broke our DCS bot. It's like, of course they did. And so they called us and we said, well, yeah, the system we put, like we had the relationship where they could call us. And then we told them like, yeah, just unplug it. Just unplug, like we knew the wire, we used a special color wire and everything. And so we said, hey, unplug the sensor, and they unplugged it. It's like, well, are you still broken? They go, yeah. It's like, okay, well, plug that thing back in because that's the only visibility we have right now. And then we dispatched some people, and when you know it is a fiber cut, like it's always a fiber cut. Yeah. But we had those relationships now in place to where even when they got nervous and thought we were impacting them, they knew that they could call us. And then when we told them, yeah, just unplug it, they knew that we were willing to lay down our security tools for the betterment of the plant, right? So now that's 2. Then 3, we are still willing to send our resources, even though it's not our problem. We're still willing to send our resources out to help them. I can go walk into that plant anytime I want, any day of the week, and they will help me do whatever I need. And that has made all the difference because now when they trust you, when things get weird, they call me. Yeah. When they have questions, they call me. Like we now communicate. These, we'll spend millions of dollars on these sensors, but then don't spend the $20 on donuts that it takes in order to create the best detection system on the planet, which is just the human being and the human eyes for, hey, that's really weird.
Yeah, so. Dude, 100%. Like I love that. Like basically, and Alana's going to agree with me on this one. What I heard is GRC. I heard business relationship, right? Like you need to understand that you're, there to serve the business, not to secure it to, your liking. And like you said, basically understand that you're willing to lay down the security so the business can continue to operate. And when people realize that you're not, I guess, conflicting with them, but actually resonating with them and trying to help them achieve their mission in a secure way, they begin to realize that like, oh, you're actually an asset to me. You're something I can benefit from. Like, of course I want you here. You make things better when you're around. Plus the sweet treats, the sugar, pretty brilliant. As far as the candy, like, did you originally bring donuts and then realize that the controllers didn't want them because they're hand sticky, or you already knew that just from experience?
Well, no, I mean, we watched them. Right. And so, like they were like always kind of doing the, rubbing hands or washing their hands or whatever. And so we're like, well, it just makes sense. Like we'll just throw them in the break room and then like you just get bags of candy. And then we started again, like throwing, I think it actually started with like, how do you get a donut in a truck? And we're like, I don't know if that really works well. And so we're like, we'll just throw a bag of candy in there. And then we got extra, like we just left the candy in the control room. So, but I mean, like if the biggest flaw you make is you leave donuts in the control room, like you're killing it. You're absolutely winning. And also like, I saw someone in the chat mention security awareness. It is one of our most important threat intelligence activities. Like we'll go to the room and we'll just drop off the candy and we'll ask like, how's everything going? You got any IT ticket? You got anything like that you need? Never on security, but they'll be like, IT hasn't gotten back to me on this printer, hasn't done this, and this. And so now we start to get a broader view of like, what are some of these other challenges? Because the issues as they relate to things like, shadow IT are normally caused because, people have positive intent or in just trying to get their jobs done. 100%. And so we stay on top of what these friction moments are for our operators, or like the guys that do the core business. And we try to remove as many of those because that tends to lead to a more safe and secure environment. As opposed to like, this is like, again, like if we go back to the beginning of the show and we talk about carrots versus stick, like that's a carrot moment more so than a stick moment, right? And so like we want to be like that partner and that relationship builder by saying, yeah, hey, I'll go talk to IT. IT will listen to me, right? I'm the security manager guy. Like I can make IT go do stuff, right? And then it helps them out, and now they're not trying to figure out how to get around all your controls.
100%. I love that we're kind of wrapping with this particular element, mostly because I love GRC and I'm trying to make GRC as cool as blue and red.
Yeah.
That's like my overall strategic goal for Simply Cyber, is to make GRC socially acceptable. But personally, I think security awareness is, next to like and multi-factor authentication and EDR. To me, it's like one of the most valuable from a risk reduction versus cost perspective that you could possibly implement. It's like literally one of the first things I implement when I go into a new environment. And I love the way you're doing it, because you are getting those relationships. And dude, I mean, I can just tell you, I think I told this story personally or a couple days ago on stream, but like more than one time in my life, I've responded to an incident, and the person who is telling me about it is like, yeah, it's been weeks. Like every time I log in, it says I'm already logged in. And like, and I'm like, what, why didn't you tell me? Like, what are you doing? And they're like, well, I could still do my job. Like I could still do what I needed to do. It just said I was logged in already. Like it didn't matter. And I'm like, what do you mean? It didn't, like, I'm here because it mattered. You know what I mean? So it's just like getting those relationships and, kind of casually educating people in a way that's a little bit more, I guess not unconventional, but like tacit, right? Like, you're making them aware without putting them in front of a PowerPoint, which they're going to resist anyways.
Right.
Yeah, man. So I don't know if you got any more of those gems. I mean, I've heard of the donuts from a offensive security perspective. Never heard of it from a defensive perspective, but I am going to introduce that.
Yeah, I mean, like we another trick that we have is we use a special color Ethernet cord for security.
Oh,
and what that does, especially out in the plant. So like if you go to a plant, you'll see cable runs all over the place. And so normally they're blue or yellow, kind of depending upon their function. Well, then like we have a very distinct color. And what that does is like that's continuous security awareness, where someone will like, they'll see that special color, be like, security is there. And they know we're ever present. And so it's this neat little reminder. And then also when you ask them to unplug the sensor, they know exactly which cord to go pull. Right. So you make that really easy for them.
That is a smart move and a good one. I like that.
Yeah.
All right. So I know there were a couple questions in chat. We are at time right now. Ian, absolutely loved having you here. I loved this conversation. Chat, you guys are amazing. We were 60 plus of you, consistent throughout the entire show. Absolutely love it. Ian, one thing that I always do with my guests is I allow them an opportunity to kind of have, final words, final say. So you can have the floor and say what you'd like, man.
Oh man. I think in our industry, it is so easy for us to focus on the technical, right? The technical controls. And this isn't to gloss over that those aren't needed, right? But I think that we need to always consider how our security controls end up impacting the usability of a service or the business or, an OT. So for example, I mess up something on the OT side, trying to do what I consider to be the right thing from a security perspective. The cascading impacts ultimately to, my friends, my family, my neighbors is maybe a loss of electrical power. And so, knowing that when you get into these things, that it does have downstream ramifications from a people perspective, like the human element is always something that's really important. And I think that for cybersecurity to really become the partners, the core structural partners that it needs to be in order to be successful, it needs to remain human. And so I think as long as we maintain our humanity within cybersecurity and seek to develop partnerships and relationships and leverage technology to support those means, then I think we'll be okay. But I think if we try and turn everything into some sort of technical problem or technical challenge, we're going to continue spinning our wheels like we are.
Yeah, absolutely. Well put, and food for thought for everybody to take as we end the conversation today. Ian, thank you so much on behalf of all of
Yeah,
chat
my
and,
pleasure,
and
Jerry.
myself. Like, great conversation. I hope we can have you back on
Anytime.
to continue doing that.
Yeah.
Chat, it's Ian Anderson. Absolutely go. I'll drop his Twitter or his X. I'll probably continue to call it Twitter, just like I call it information security, not cybersecurity. Just go follow him on Twitter. Any projects you want to shout out, Ian, or any GitHubs or upcoming activities, speaking engagements you want to share?
No, I mean, I think we talked about the big one is S4. Like, I think if you are interested in OT, I would go now to go get tickets. There is only a limited number of tickets. It sells out really quickly. And so if you're interested, now is the time to go get it. And if you end up going, hit me up on Twitter and let me know. And I would love to get to meet up and we can talk OT security stuff all day long.
Awesome. All right. That sounds great. Everybody, thank you all so very much. I'm Jerry. He's Ian, your chat. Until next time, stay secure. Everybody, I hope you enjoyed that content. Keep the cybersecurity train going by connecting with the other Simply Cyber community resources. We have the Discord server that's lively and always keeps the conversation going. You can connect with me directly on LinkedIn. And also every single weekday morning on the Simply Cyber channel, we're doing live daily cyber threat briefings, 8 a.m. Eastern time, as well as Thursday at 4:30 p.m. We're doing live stream interviews with industry experts, and we produce videos that we push out every Wednesday morning. I'm Jerry from Simply Cyber. I hope you enjoyed the content, and we'll see you in the next one.